And now to our conversation on the show today. The 10th National Assembly is now in its 10th month of sitting after its inauguration on the 13th of June last year. How time flies, right? I remember being right in the Senate chamber while that election was going on. It was a tough one at the Senate, but it was quite easy for, the Speaker of the House of Reps to emerge. But Speaker of the House of Reps, Abbas Tajuddin, has lauded the performance of the 10th House when it clocked 6 months last December. It did say, quote, "Our legislative outputs in the last 6 months are remarkable. The House received and considered 962 bills, 500 motions and 153 petitions. Of these numbers, Mr. Speaker did say 120 bills have passed the second reading stage and that they are currently undergoing further review and refinement to address some of the concerns raised during the debates," end quote. The big question is how fast the House of Representatives gone in passing these bills. How many of them will positively impact on the lives of Nigerians? The issue of the 1999 Constitutional Amendment is also on the front burner, plus how Constituency Projects Fund is being utilized, which of course has been a subject of debate among many others. I'm joined by Honorable Akin Rotimi Jr., who is a member representing Ekiti North 1, Ikolioye. He's also House spokesman and Chairman House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. Akin Omo Akin, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Unifemi, and good evening, viewers.
And finally to have you here. So you guys are on Easter break? Easter and Ramadan break?
Well, yes, we're on a recess right now for the year. First in the year, the first recess in the year.
Nigerians will say they've lost count of the number of recess you've taken this year. I mean, how many days do you actually work?
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to correct that misconception. It's the first recess for the year, actually. And when you hear that the House goes on recess, it's not like members are able to do whatever they want to do and it's free time for us. No. Once the Assembly is inaugurated, and in this case, June 13th of 2023, up until June 12th, 2027, the Assembly never goes on break. What you have recess for is just plenary, but there are very many other activities that the House embarks on, namely constituency outreach. So very many of us have been in our constituencies back home, deepening engagement with the people.
So even while you are not sitting,
even when we're not sitting,
working back at the constituency,
100%. Even committees are still meeting. Public petitions, public accounts, all sorts of other committees, and it's an opportunity for even carrying out oversight functions. So we never go on break. Representation is not something that you get a break from. So the fact that we're on recess does not mean that.
You're saying there is more to lawmaking than just sitting in the green chamber.
100%. There's a whole lot more, and the Constitution even recognizes that. There's representation, there's oversight, there's your legislative journey, and then a creation of a peculiar situation in Nigeria, which is empowerment. So you have, very broad roles as a lawmaker.
Let's talk about the big elephant in the room, constituency projects. We hear that the zonal intervention fund is 100 billion naira annually. They say you guys at the House of Reps get 60 billion, while your colleagues at the Senate get 40. The perception out there is that the disbursement of these funds, over the years has been shrouded in so much secrecy and that there isn't much accountability. You probably would have shared that opinion before you joined the House. What have you seen?
Not very much so, because I think that stakeholders, Nigerians generally need to also pay greater attention to these issues. So for example, the issues of the budget, it's a public document. It's something that anybody can very easily get a hold of and actually even search through with keywords of your constituency and find whatever projects are there. The constituency projects came up in previous assemblies and have been sustained because it's an opportunity to ensure that every part of Nigeria feels the presence of government some way, somehow. So yes, there are projects that the executive through the MDAs, they do and all of that, but it's an opportunity to say that if really these are representatives of the people, you are in touch with your people, you know what their priorities are, you can consult with your people, engage with your people to determine certain projects that would be most helpful for them.
The intention of this scheme is reportedly to ensure equity in the allocation of projects nationwide.
Absolutely.
But from recent developments, we're hearing that the function the amount you get is a function of your seniority or your ability to lobby. What really happens inside?
Well, no, it's a uniform amount, and it's spread across
You mean
various states.
Every single lawmaker gets the same amount?
So you're talking about the constituency project?
Yes.
That particular provision is uniform across the board. But look, let's be sincere. Everywhere in the world where you have representation, it's not going to be equal. Whatever you bring back to your constituency, it's not going to be equal. It's a function of how much, the particular lawmaker, the legislator, the representative is able to lobby your colleagues in various other committees, within the MDAs to say, look, these are my priorities.
So it is not uniform after all.
It cannot be uniform.
Well, I thought you said it was uniform just now.
No, I'm saying the budget that you mentioned for constituency projects, those are, distributed across, so you don't have any control over that. Everybody gets that equitably. Right? But in terms of whatever else you are able to attract to your constituency, if you see just how much lawmakers have to lobby, various MDAs to say, look, if it's water, I have water issues in my constituency, then I have to be talking to the ministry or whatever other agency to say, look, how can you help me bring these projects to my constituency? Education, health, whatever other priorities. And also within the various committees as well, of course, that there are opportunities for you to be able to lobby to say, look, yes, you've brought this here, but, this particular project has been suffering in my area, or this particular area, aspect of life, people have been suffering from it, and to make sure that it's included in the budget. So I think we need to come to terms with that. And that's why you have to, be very intentional. Constituencies have to be intentional about who they send to the National Assembly. Because if you go there and you're sitting lame duck, of course your constituency would not...
You're saying the representative has to be someone who can speak for the people.
100%.
And get this fund. So I've been asking every lawmaker who comes on the show how much they got. And you're not going to be an exception because you represent my constituency.
Yes.
How much did you get in the 2024 budget for your constituency?
So again, let me correct this misconception. When you say how much did I get, I did not get any money.
How much did you get for your people?
Okay, so what projects? You can ask that. What projects was I able to attract? And I think it's more important to look in terms of not in terms of monetary terms, but even in terms of what the projects are. I'm very proud of the fact that through lobbying and through, engagements across the board, we have a motherless babies home that will come into my constituency this year. For 500,000 people not to have a motherless babies home, I think that it's important. I'm happy about the fact that we're going to have a school for children with special needs. April is the month of, is autism month, right? And to know that, look, there is no specialized school to be able to deal and give, children on the spectrum and with other learning disabilities, challenges, the opportunity to be able to have an education. I'm also proud of the fact that we're able to attract a home for, the critically disabled in my constituency, and so many other projects that we were able, because we're very intentional. These were engagements we had with our people to determine what it is that we need. So so again, we hear a lot, someone got 500 million, someone got, it is absolutely wrong because nobody gets any amount. There is a Public Procurement Act that has to be followed through to the letter. Whatever is budgeted for still has to go through that whole process within the executive. And, we, as much as possible, try to make sure that, we don't interfere in that process.
I spoke with Senator Monguno last month. And he mentioned, directly that he got 300 million naira for his constituency. You have talked about the motherless baby home.
Yes.
All of these in monetary value. Does it measure up to that amount as a lawmaker in the House of Reps?
Why don't you get a hold of the budget and have a look at those projects?
Is it clearly written what each lawmaker gets in the budget?
It is. So again, when you say what each lawmaker gets, again, it's a little... it can be misunderstood. Understand that, because it's not any lawmaker that gets anything. My duty as a lawmaker, so for example, when I resumed last year, was to take a copy of the budget and look for every single place where my constituency was mentioned. So I challenge everybody else to also do that as well. Keywords you can search. If you search for Ekiti, for example, you can pull out everything that's in the budget. So for instance, it doesn't mean that I was the one that facilitated everything.
For instance, this motherless baby home that you talked about. Who pays for it?
It's an agency. It's an agency that, yes.
Who supplies the contractor for it?
It's the agency I just mentioned. There's a Public Procurement Act.
There's no point where the lawmaker decides who the contractor is?
Absolutely not. It is something that is totally
how
separate.
do you liaise with this agency to be sure that what they are doing complies with what you have
for whatever projects that you find, whether I lobbied for it or whether it appeared, it is my duty, right? I'm duty bound to make sure that I ensure that I follow through with the particular ministry, department, of agency implementing, to ensure that it is implemented to the letter. So that's it.
There's a huge trust deficit between Nigerians and the lawmakers. I'm sure you're aware of this. Do you think every lawmaker should share some more specific details about this project with their constituents to be able to fill this gap?
Well, when you talk about trust deficits, that's been something that, everybody has issues about, politicians, political operatives generally, but particularly the legislator over time. And that's what you find for us in the 10th Assembly. Jointly, we're very intentional about ensuring that we're a lot more proactive in engagement. We're a lot more open. But even at the level of the individual lawmaker, I, for example, have engaged with my constituents, and many people are aware of the fact that these projects are coming to the constituency. We've engaged the various stakeholders at the grassroots level to let them know that anytime from now within the course of this year, this MDA is going to be reaching out where the project to be cited, to ensure that due diligence is done in all of that. So it's not something, again, whatever people say on Twitter, online, or all of that, yes, it means a whole lot. But I think what is even more important is what happens on ground. Are the people aware of what it is that their legislature is doing, what they are representing?
The debate, or perhaps the argument, is pretty much about, the way and manner lawmakers carry themselves with this project. It looks like, well, this is me doing goodwill for the people. And then some have also argued to the extent that we need to know what you are getting to be able to know if you are doing enough, right? So it's not enough to say the motherless baby home. We need to be sure that what we are getting tallies with what is budgeted.
So again, those are things that are very important. And for example, I try as much as possible to even engage and encourage scrutiny. But you must understand, for me as a lawmaker, my job starts and ends at the point of lobbying. After that, it is in the hands of the MDA. Anybody can go to that MDA. It is published, for example. It is advertised, right? There are, guidelines in accordance with the Public Procurement Act. It's very, very separate from the lawmaker. And I think that we really need to make that point very strongly so that Nigerians don't have this perception that you have a say in how these things, are done ultimately. So
a lot of constituency engagement is ongoing during this recess, and everyone is talking about your decision to hire 87 new aides across the 24 wards in your constituency. So you have 8 legislative advisors, 48 legislative assistants, 5 constituency office assistants, and 26 focal persons for people living with disability. Correct. You now have over 100 aides. Is that correct?
Yes.
That must be unprecedented even among your colleagues, right?
Well, I wouldn't speak for my other colleagues, but what I know
so that you understand why people are like, 100 aides?
Well, maybe many people don't talk very much about it, but I know that we are very intentional in the 10th Assembly of the House of Representatives to deepen grassroots engagement, to deepen constituency outreach. There is a constituency, there's a House Committee on Constituency Outreach that oversees what it is that members do to ensure that, number one, you have a functional constituency office that's furnished and properly staffed. And I think it's important to just clear that when you say, an individual member, engages people, it doesn't add a cent, a dollar, a naira, a kobo, do you understand, to the cost of running government. We have only chosen that out of whatever it is that I have, right, I am making sure that I'm sharing with these people.
Are you using personal money to pay them?
Whatever, you can call it personal, you can call it for my salary, my allowances, whatever. It is important for me.
But I thought you are entitled to constituency aid allowance.
So what you have, right, is every lawmaker has 5 aides, right, that are, statutorily provided for you. But anybody can go over and beyond that to engage other people. So in my own case, I think it's very important.
You added 95.
Sir, I engage them, and I think that they are not even enough. I think that there are more people that would also. I have 41 communities in my constituency. I have 500,000 people. So if I have a decentralized system of ensuring that I get feedback down to the grassroots and
I guess those are your people dancing. I know the people love it, right? But do you think it's a political burden you have to carry? Because some would say your job is to make law, not necessarily to provide jobs, so to speak.
So the constitutional provision about the role, and you can actually remember ROLE. There's representation, there's your oversight activities, there's legislation, and then there's empowerment.
Okay.
Right.
So this is empowerment.
This is representation.
Okay.
Okay. You have people down at the grassroots. Again, like I said, it doesn't add a kobo, right, to the cost of running government. It is my own decision to be able to deepen engagement by ensuring that I have one person across the end, all my 24 wards, that at any point in time, if you can't reach me, you can reach that person. That person can take feedback. It's important that I have a person living with disability representing that community, so that at every point in time, vulnerable people can, through that person, be able to reach my office. It's important that I have thematic leads for the 6 agenda points that I have, from health, education, social protection, infrastructure, and all of that. Now, to be clear.
But how sustainable is this? Because I'm looking at the burden this will also have on your pocket. I don't know where you're getting the money from, but if government gives you money for 5 and you've gone above 100, can you sustain this for the next 3 years?
Well, because it's a priority to me. You have a running cost that you have to, expend, especially just like you mentioned, to ensure that your constituency office runs, properly. So, and again, it's not, I must make this point that it is not something that is even peculiar to me, right? I can tell you that a good number of my colleagues, right, because we have made that decision. We have a legislative agenda that was adopted. And for us, deepening grassroots engagement is 100% for us. So there are many people that have different other structures to ensure that they are able to engage.
We have just about 4 more minutes to go, but I want us to talk about politics in Ekiti. You were special advisor to Governor Fayemi.
Correct.
On communications and strategy. We haven't heard much from him since he left office. I know he's now president of Forum of Regions of Africa and has been doing some professional work in that regard. But Ekiti seems to have been free this time from the common fracas between the incumbent and the predecessor. Who gets the credit? Is it Fayemi or Oyebanji?
Well, thank you for that question. And for us in Ekiti, we're extremely happy about the fact that both former Governor Fayemi and His Excellency Governor Biodun Oyebanji have a very wonderful relationship. I think it's a testament to both of them, the characters of both of them. And I think I must also give credit to all the other former governors, particularly Otumani Adebayo, even Governor Afayoshe and Governor Shegu Oni. They've all worked together to say, look, Ekiti is bigger than all of us, and we must make sure that we work together to be able to move the state forward. So they've enjoyed a great relationship over the years. Governor Fayemi, just like you mentioned, is out of office, but is not meddlesome because he has a lot that he's doing for himself, both within and outside of the country. So he has a very productive post-office life. So they have a very great relationship, and that's to our benefit.
We must also add that unlike other governors, Governor Oyebanji has been able to mend fences and maintain a good relationship with his predecessors and even other stakeholders like Afe Babalola, with whom Governor Fayemi recently had a spat. I don't know if you heard about that. Mr. Babalola had made a comment about how past governors did not perform well. And then, the former governor was quoted to have said he's a man suffering from a failing memory and driven by hate. And some are asking him to apologize, and, the story is endless. But let's talk about security in Ekiti, because you don't look like a man who would cry. In January, we actually saw you shed some tears. You became emotional when you were addressing the killing of the monarchs and the abduction. What's the situation right now? Has government responded decisively?
Okay, so the question I want to ask you is that how do men that cry look?
I was just...
Right. No, you see, because we also need to address that's a conversation for another day about male, masculinity issues and all of that. But you see, the point about it is that it affected me greatly because I enjoyed a great relationship with the traditional rulers in my constituency. I was with them just 3 days before that. So it was very surreal just 3 days.
You mean with the monarchs that were?
Yes, I was with them just 3 days before that. That same road through with the past, I had driven across that road just 3 days before that. So it hit me so much that someone that I was with was now suddenly so gruesomely, killed. But in terms of what has been done, kudos to our governor. As the chief security officer of the state, is worked extensively, with the military, with the army. We've had increased deployments of personnel, increased coordination among the security agencies, the DSS, civil defense, police, the army and other security agencies. So again, there's a whole lot more to do, right? But I think we've come a long way, and I'm happy about the fact that broader conversations around decentralizing our security architecture is even being had now with the constitutional review process to ensure that those in the spirit of subsidiarity, that state governments are able to take the lead, right, in managing the security architecture, because it's obvious that what we have currently is not working for us.
And we have run out of time. You can tell we should have this conversation more often.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that.
First, because you are spokesperson of the House of Reps.
Absolutely.
And second, because you represent my constituency.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Honorable Akin Jr. Thank you so much for joining us. Member representing Ekiti North 1, Ikolioye, is also a House spokesperson and Chairman House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. That's our program today, everyone. You can watch a repeat broadcast at midnight and at 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.